once again, everybody. Such beautiful music, such a beautiful story. Thank you very much, Gail, for reading it. I was thinking you would be an excellent preacher, you see. Just on a fun note, one of the things I missed most when I was in the Chicago area back in 2018 was the lack of bell ringing in the Sundays. I was wondering every Sunday, where are the bells? Because I was used to, over here in Transylvania, every church rings their bells almost abusively every Sunday morning to invite people to the sermon. Like Zora was invited in the story, and I was missing that in the Chicago area. I'm not sure how is the situation in Geneva, if on the Sundays your bells are rang abusively or not. But I just think that they are belonging to every Sunday and every major holiday, culturally and also traditionally. Back when I was a children, we were forced by our parents to go to church. Over here in Transylvania, in Eastern Europe, going to church is mandatory for many people. We also live as an ethnic minority, being Hungarians in Romania, so we traveled quite half an hour on a bus to get to our Hungarian Catholic church. When we needed to leave for the church, I was suffering, you can imagine. But when we got there, I kind of liked it most of the times. I would like to say every time I liked being in the church. It just had a sense of mysticity and the feeling of belonging somewhere, obviously besides my own apartment. It was like our second home, our more grandiose home. And I later became an altar boy and got more and more active in the church. But when I became a teenager, I was also critical and asked many questions. And for this reason, I was verbally and twice, on a small scale, but still physically abused. I don't want to create drama around it, but I wanted to mention it because we can sometimes have the experience where churches can be oppressive places. Unfortunately, I would like to add. Whenever and wherever I travel, all around Europe or the world, I love to explore churches, which can be peaceful islands in the middle of big and noisy metropolises. But from my and many other people's experience, these peaceful islands can rapidly turn into stressful, anxious places for many people. I left the church when it became like that for me because it didn't feel like home anymore and continued my teenager rebellious life without the church. In the school, needless to say, I was also critical towards the teachers, sometimes reasonably so, sometimes unreasonably, beyond the limits of good behavior and good manners. I wasn't an easy kid, that's for sure. I got to the point where my professors decided that they need to kick me out of the school, and that means, in our home legislature, that someone needs to repeat the year in another school. Now, that is one of the biggest disappointments in a children's life, you can imagine. I was 16 back then and heartbroken, with a feeling that everybody shows their finger at me and everybody sees a societal failure in me. And to some regards, I really was a failure, I need to admit to myself. I tried then to connect with friends, but obviously they weren't looking after my company that much. I left the church, I left my school. I was naturally wondering what can be the meaning of my life. I wasn't depressed, but I felt that my life is meaningless. The only institution that saw the human in me, besides the societal structures, was the Unitarian Church and their youth group. In a search for social connections, I attended one of their youth and young adult group meetings, and I was very surprised that despite having former class and schoolmates there, nobody looked down on me. Very refreshing, so to speak. For some reason, the Unitarian values changed the perspective on me. And I felt, for the first time in many, many months, that the inherent worth and dignity of every human being becomes a physical reality in that space. It's not just spoken words, it's not just our values that are being spoken out. It became really a physical reality that changed my worldview and changed my view on myself. I believe that is how any church should look like on every corner of the world. These are the churches that are saving people. These are the churches that are really doing what the church should do. Later on, I decided I want to become a minister, and yet here we are. And not because God showed himself and called me with his heavenly voice, but specifically to be able to contribute to the work of an institution, of a church that has the possibility to become a sanctuary to people in need. When our Ukrainian friends first started arriving to Romania in March last year, there wasn't a question, what is the right thing to do? I know it from the Bible because I'm a Christian and I'm reading it. I'm reading it in the parable of the Good Samaritan, but for real, any decent human would know what they have to do. Yet, most of the churches stayed closed. We were surprised, but also extra motivated to do more and more to help the people in need. I don't believe in a church that closes its doors when people are trying to find shelter. Many Christian churches and many Christian people are agonizing every Christmas how Mary and Joseph were left out of every house in Bethlehem. Yet we are doing the same thing. We are preaching about the Good Samaritan, yet we fail to live up to the values of that story told by Jesus himself. What kind of Christianity is that? Mahatma Gandhi once said, if the Christians would live according to the values of the Testament and the Bible, India would turn tomorrow to Christianity. Now, I know that many of you are not considering yourself Christian. Some of you aren't theists either. But I am a strong believer that some of you are more Christian than your fundamentalist churchgoer fellow citizens. Why am I saying this? Because I was in your church 5 years ago, and I saw your activities, how you are helping your neighbors. And if one helps their neighbors, they are paying forward the human Jesus' heritage. The good news of today's world, which would be, we are here to help each other out whenever there is a need. If somebody is seeking spiritual guidance, the church should be there to help them out. If somebody goes through grief, anxiety, depression, the church should be there to help them out. If somebody is starving, is thirsty, or needs a shelter above his head, the church should be there to help them out. If somebody doesn't feel that they belong somewhere, the church should be there for them. The church should be there hugging them. The church should be there loving them. That's the church I want to believe in. When we were waiting for our Ukrainian refugees when the war started, somebody contacted me on WhatsApp. They just messaged me if we can help with housing or shelter. And obviously we were organizing how can we help. So I responded to that person without knowing them that yes, of course, we can help you out. They came by train. I sent them messages about their future home or their future apartment. And when they arrived to the train station, I just realized that these are very old people, 80 or 85-year-old couple, and they were coming from a region very close to the Republic of Moldova. And when they got down from the train, they instantly shook my hand, hold my hand very strongly, and told me that they never believed that someone would help them unconditionally. And my instinct reaction was like, this is natural. This is what we church-going people, Christian people are doing or should be doing every day. But for him, he told me that he cannot believe that there are people like that, that they would help uh, unconditionally. So people tend to get surprised when they are seeing the unconditional love that we should be practicing all around the world. For some of the people, it can change the literal world. It changed it for me. It changed it for these Ukrainian people who wouldn't believe that there would be people who would be helping them out without knowing them. And I know that there are for many, many people in Geneva and in the surroundings as well. I believe that so many churches are churches only in their name, but not in their actions. And so many fellowships and organizations become churches despite not being actual churches or despite their official names. And I'm so delighted to see the good work of Unitarianism shaping a better world and a better future all around the globe. In the United States, in Transylvania, in India, in the Philippines, in Australia. It's good to belong to a faith community that is not just local. It's not just in our own communities and doing the work remotely and separated from the rest of the world, but belonging to a faith community that is doing the good work of Christianity, of liberal faith, of a progressive faith everywhere across the globe. We are not the biggest religion in the world. I'm sure that you're aware of that. But we might be one of those who are really bringing a change to this world, so this world can be a more loving and peaceful one. I'm sure that we can do more every day to become more helpful toward our communities and the community at large. But one thing is for sure, faith and faith communities can change people's lives for the better. And I know we don't believe in dogmas. We are Unitarians after all. But I think this is a sacred truth that I experienced when I was down. The Ukrainian guests experienced when they needed it. The many social action organizations that you are helping are seeing it as well. And I don't want to tap our own shoulders and congratulate each other. But seeing so many hateful acts in this world, sometimes we need to reassure ourselves in our humanity and that we seem to be on the right path. We cannot do more than to meditate onto what is the next good step that we can do. So whenever we leave the church or we leave this Zoom platform after this service, we can really feel that this service changed us. Because many, many people go all around the world to churches on every Sunday. Some of them would go even more frequently than once in a week. But the real test of what happens after you pass the door of the church, that is where we have our exams as church-going people. Does church change us into becoming better people every time we are crossing his steps? If it does, I'm very glad that we are here today and we are worshiping today. If it doesn't, I think there will be enough time for prayer and meditation just to see what is the path that we need to follow. May it continue for this church, for our Unitarian faith all around the globe, to be a helping, loving, peace-acquiring faith. And every small piece of light will continue to march towards the church, enlightening the road towards justice, towards empathy, towards love, towards peace, towards a world that we really want to live in. Just like in the story with Zora, we are the light that goes toward the church. We are the light that are enlightening the church. We are the ones who can bring light into the lives of many people. We are the ones to create this church. And this church, it faces, and it creates a mirror to the way as we are modeling it. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.